What is up, you guys? Welcome to episode 3 of the KTM 200 build. Big thanks to my buddy August for getting those skid plate tabs welded on. If you'd like to get caught up on this series, links are down below in the description. The plan is to race this bike in Silver Kings Hard Enduro. Now I'm going to head over to a welding shop in Bozeman who is able to weld aluminum and see if we can get this subframe taken care of. Let's do it.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good, how are you?
Good.
So here's the subframe.
Sweet.
That's all I need fixed right there. And then this swing arm, and there's just a hole drilled there that I just like filled and flattened.
Weird. This one will be a little tricky just because you never know what you're dealing with when it comes to cast.
Do you think it's just not worth dealing with?
I probably wouldn't. I don't think it affects the structure of it, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes it just ends up kind of melting away and not doing what you want.
Okay.
I can show it to the guy.
So I'll hear from you today?
Yeah,
Okay.
give you a shout. Probably get a call around 1.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah, it'd probably be a 1 or 2 hours, so we're at 135 an hour.
The 1 to 2 hour estimate at $135 an hour, I think may be more than the cost of a subframe. I may have to look. I mean, I know these shops got to make their money, but I honestly figured from that crack that this was like a 20-30 minute job. So maybe I just completely underestimate what goes into welding. Obviously, I'm not a welder, but we'll see what he says. Maybe his welder will get in and it'll be like, oh, this is a 15-minute job. As for the swing arm, with his comments on it being cast, I think I will just go ahead and plug it with a bolt. Definitely nowhere near as simple as I expected this all to be. Heading over to the skate shop, and hopefully this is more successful. How's it going?
What's up, man?
Do you guys sell skate rails?
We do. Do I have any in? Yeah, we don't have them. I will bring in tons of them over the summer. Yeah.
I'm actually trying to put these on the bottom of a dirt bike skid plate.
Do you know it works awesome?
What's that?
Dude, I assume you probably have tools. Just like a cheap cutting board, that material is so good.
Yeah.
It's really dense, but it breaks away smoothly, so it doesn't go like when it breaks. It
Gotcha.
just smoothly sloughs out.
All right, maybe I'll just give that a shot then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No worries, appreciate it. You guys have a good one.
If you are not familiar, skate rails are high-density plastic that mount to the bottom of a skateboard to help the board slide when grinding objects like rails and boxes. I had the idea to mount some to the bottom of this skid plate, as these aluminum skid plates do not tend to slide over obstacles as well as plastic. I typically run AXP skid plates on my bikes for this reason, but they do not offer a plate that will fit this bike, and there don't seem to be many other good plastic options for this bike. The cutting board suggestion was actually worth trying, I thought, so I went to Target and bought one before tracing and cutting it to shape with my jigsaw. I countersunk the holes and mounted it to the aluminum plate, and once it was all together, I had mixed feelings. It may do what it's intended to do, but it's pretty bulky, decreases ground clearance, and isn't exactly what I had imagined. I designed it to be bolt-on, so I can try it in the future, but for now, I think I'm going to stick with the aluminum plate and maybe continue brainstorming on this one. Now, as for the swing arm, I bought this little guy right here at Ace Hardware to fill that hole in the swing arm. I've never been particularly concerned about this hole, but figured while I was at the welding shop, I might as well ask about it. I coated this bolt in red Stuck Nuts thread locker before installing it, and then hit it with a center punch around the edges in order to peen it in hopes that it never comes out. I smoothed out the surface with prime wheels, and hopefully this is a permanent solution. I scrubbed the swing arm down thoroughly in the sink before installing some fresh graphics from DeCal Works. The ridges on KTM swing arms make graphics tricky. On one side, I tried cutting the graphic along those edges to make it 3 separate decals, although I don't love how that turned out, so I just used a lot of heat on the opposite side to try and get that graphic to conform to these sharp edges. Either way, they look really nice and they do cover up that hole. I just wish I was able to get them a little more perfect with that edge. This upper swing arm bearing where the shock mounts was the bane of my existence. This thing took me ages to get out and I had such a difficult time getting the new one installed. It kept wanting to go in lopsided and it took a lot of patience and persistence to finally get it done. That said, I did indeed get it done. I inspected the other swing arm bearings and they were actually in great shape with no need to be replaced, which is funny because I preemptively bought bearings from Rocky Mountain months ago, and apparently my account has a no late returns flag on it because I did it once before despite spending thousands of dollars there over the years. So if you want to support the channel, I've got an affiliate link for motosport.com in the description. Now at this point, I was ready to get the engine back in the frame and start making this thing look like a dirt bike again. This was by far the easiest I've ever had an engine go straight into the frame, and the swing arm aligned beautifully as well, with the axle sliding in like butter. Lots left to do, but it always feels good when you start building instead of taking apart. After all of this, the valving stacks arrived from DSC Motorsports with a Hard Enduro setup for my 200 and an XC race setup for my 350. I rebuilt the air fork first, which was pretty easy. After installing a fresh set of OEM seals and bushings, I installed the lower into the upper, driving the seal with a seal driver, and once that was done, I was able to reinstall the air cartridge. Once I torqued that bottom nut, I was able to add oil and tighten the cap. I had let the air out just to make the air cartridge take up less space in storage, so I set the air pressure as well and that fork was done. Moving on to the right fork, it was time to install those shim stacks. Daniel sent me some extra shims that he said I probably wouldn't need, but I gave him a call while I was installing the rebound shim stack on the damper rod assembly, and he provided this explanation.
There's going to be a space in between the shim stack and the piston. And
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
Yep, that space that's left there is called lift. So we actually want to measure that.
So as Daniel described to me, the goal in the revalve was to make adjustments better suited for the riding I plan to do, but maintain the thickness of the valving stack. He said it should be where it needs to be, but in order to make sure, I took a 0.6mm shim stack with that valving stack tightened down and ensured that there was indeed 0.6mm of lift on the stack. Indeed there was, so this assembly was good to go. I feel like I should clarify, if it isn't already obvious, that I am by no means a suspension expert. This stuff is all still confusing to me, but I'm working hard to understand the concepts and get better at it. No way to get better than to start doing it, but having someone like Daniel who's willing to help and offer expertise is immensely helpful when things aren't making sense. I filled and bled the cartridge, and while I let any remaining bubbles rise to the top, I headed back over to the welding shop. John is a master of welding, and I am always appreciative when I get to watch someone work who has truly mastered their craft. The level of precision and attention to detail John put into this subframe showed me how much he truly cares about his work. This job ended up taking him about 45 minutes, and he really did pay attention to every last detail. I was actually surprised when he pulled out a set of calipers nearing the end of the job and began grinding the subframe to ensure each side was exactly the same thickness. He asked me if 5 thousandths was close enough, and I said that will certainly do. So I want to thank Midwest Welding and John for letting me be a fly on the wall and film this process, as it is really cool to see what goes into it. It is still a skill I'd love to pick up, but it would be a long time before I could weld like John. With the subframe task checked off, I went home to wrap up this fork rebuild. I installed the compression assembly into the cartridge and verified smooth operation of the damper rod, which I completely forgot to film. I did have to pull the compression assembly and add oil as I didn't have quite enough in there the first time around, and I knew that because the damper rod was not fully extending smoothly on its own. Once I had that resolved, the reassembly process was pretty much exactly the same as the air side, aside from reinstalling those rebound and compression adjusters and setting clickers. The forks got a fresh set of DSC decals. You guys don't want to know how long it took to get all of the glue residue from the WP decals off of these forks, but we're good to go. With the forks done, I just had to get the front end of this bike built. Jesse Ansley sent me these triple clamps, which are from an 18 to 22 generation KTM, but he had them on an older KTM 2-stroke, and I talked about that in the first episode. So big thanks to Jesse for sending these over. This whole front end is such a sweet upgrade to an older bike. I installed these Urmosi soft bar clamps, which we will talk about some more when the handlebars get installed and the rest of the clamp, but ultimately, these are designed to reduce vibration and fatigue, and I'm really excited to try them out. The triple clamps installed with no hassle whatsoever. Jesse told me they fit his 2000 model with no mods, so I assumed they'd fit this 06, but I wasn't 100% sure, so actually getting them on the bike was certainly a relief. I tightened the steering and installed the forks, and if you guys have watched many of my builds, you know I have no patience to wait until the end to install plastics. I had to unpack this fresh white fender from mxplastics.com and see how it looked on the bike. I utilized some fresh hardware from Fastmetric and got the fender installed.
Holy cow. I'll be honest, I have been absolutely grinding the last couple weeks, couple big house projects, getting my 350 rebuilt for a riding trip to Arizona, doing my full 100-hour service and maintenance, working on a video on that as well. But oh boy, does that grind start to pay off as you start seeing these bikes come together. Cannot believe that this is the front end of my KTM 200. And for this KTM 200, we've also got a brand new set of wheels from Urmosi. This is an enduro specific wheel set. These wheels have super beefy steel spokes and all of the other components are made of very high quality aluminum. The rear wheel has dual bearings on the drive side. And overall, these things have just been built with taking a beating in mind, so I am excited to give them a beating and see how they hold up. So this rear wheel we will deal with in a future episode, but right now I'd like to go ahead and mount a Shinko tire and a moose on this front wheel and start getting the front end of this thing looking like a motorcycle. I've also got some fresh hardware packs from Fastmetric that I will be using right now, not to mention some other hardware packs I will be using in the future. I tend to show off Fastmetric's engine and body fastener kits, but they've got all sorts of awesome other kits like this that will be super useful on this bike. Unfortunately, I have exactly 0 spare front rim locks at the moment, so I will rob the rotor and rim lock from the original front wheel, which I'll make quick work of with the Rabaconda. And then I just gotta decide which Shinko I wanna run. It has seriously been like 6 a.m. to midnight almost every day for the last couple weeks, but like I said, seeing it come together starts to put a smile back on the face. So let's freaking do it. Got a new used axle off of eBay for this generation KTM fork. This Urmosi front wheel is mounted up and my God, we're ready for install. Oh man. I have got 48 hours to get my 350 back together before our riding trip in Arizona. So that is the end of the progress for this episode of the 200 build, but I could not be more stoked with how this thing is looking. Modern front end on an older 200. This thing's gonna be a beast. I can't wait to show you the other upgrades I have in store for this half of the bike. Guys, we are getting ridiculously close to 100,000 subscribers, so if you enjoyed this video and aren't yet subscribed to the channel, please click that button below. I will be bringing one of you guys out here to ride with me for a few days when I reach 100,000 subscribers. It's looking like that's going to happen in the middle of winter, so that trip will be in the spring, but that'll give me plenty of time to figure out who's coming out here and sort out all the logistics. I know I've been saying it in every video, but so much good stuff is in the works. On the agenda is a pit bike build that one of you will win, a 600cc snow bike build that will also probably have to visit the dunes with wheels, along with a merch line dropping next month. So once again, cannot thank you all enough for the support. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think of the progress on the 200 so far. I'm gonna go enjoy some time in the desert, and I will see you guys as soon as I can with another video.